I guess my question to you would be, what do you tell the person who's on that, like, third step of I want to follow this, but those slow steps down. What would your advice be to that person?
To move to what step in their process?
The next one, keep moving down the line. I mean, I guess it would seem to me that if somebody decides I want to be an entertainer,
Right,
but they can't decide, or they feel like they don't have the guts to say I want to be a mentalist, that's a
right.
failure. But it's not, right?
It's not.
Yeah, I guess that's what kind of encouragement would you give to that person?
Sure. I remember when I first moved to Vegas, I asked several people what they thought the chances were of me becoming a full-time entertainer. Bram Charles, who runs everymagician.com, and he's a very good magician, he said the best magicians from all over the world move to Vegas. So if you want to compete in this town, you better be as good as they are. Then I went to Jeff McBride, and Jeff McBride said there are lots and lots of magicians in Las Vegas, but if you're good, you'll work because there's plenty of work here. And he's right. And then I went to Earl Cheney. Earl Cheney is Mr. Clown. I'm making a documentary on him, and he was in Ringling Brothers for years. He ran a magic shop in Vegas for years called Planet Mirth Magic, and he said an expletive, but he said, "I want everyone in this town to know that Earl Cheney would blank a fish for 5 cents." And there's a truth to that that's very nice in such a dirty statement, but he's got that go get 'em spirit that you have to not only be good, but you have to be willing to take work. You have to be looking for work, willing to take work, fighting for work, and let everybody know I'm ready to work. I'm easy to work with. There was an excellent book called An Actor Behaves that talked about that. That said people would rather work with someone they like to work with than someone who's amazing. And so
Yeah.
I think likability, being people's friends, knowing when the agent's birthday is and what their children's name are, and actually caring about this information, not just faking it,
Yeah.
and actually being their friends, and actually working hard to be kind, and interacting and providing them something, providing them friendship or gifts or information or sharing news stories or having something of value that you give other than just your magic show. And it's possible. It's certainly possible to make a career. I'm lucky, both lucky and unlucky, I guess. I
Mhm.
don't have a wife. I don't have children. So I'm just a lone gunman out there making money and only have to take care of myself.
Yeah.
But even if you have a wife and children, you can make that transition into being an entertainer. But the entertainment world is unpredictable and it's very difficult and it's very scary. And I had to starve for 6 months. And even recently, I had a time where I had a real hardship. And Max Maven, I asked Max Maven recently. He books at the castle, and I said, "What do you tell aspiring entertainers?" And he said, "Be prepared to starve because it's so unpredictable. But if it's in your soul, and being an entertainer is the core of who you are, and it's all you can do, then go out and do it because it's what you have to do."
Wise words. Let's move on. Outside
Okay,
of magic, who inspired you? So this would be outside the genre. Let's look books, movies, records,
right.
live performances, whatever. Let's give one, and it doesn't have to be the most, the guy who defined your life, but just someone that sticks out that affected your act that's outside of magic.
Joseph Campbell.
Okay.
He was a folklorist. It was because of his writing that, and because George Lucas had taken his classes at UCLA, that Star Wars, the original three, sprung out of the hero's myth, the hero with a thousand faces by Joseph Campbell. Reading his books, The Power of Myth, The Hero with a Thousand Faces, seeing a series on him with Bill Moyers, I took a class in high school called The Art of Being Human, and it was a overall look at the entire humanities. And then in college, I took a class on Joseph Campbell, and I later taught a class on Joseph Campbell and Star Wars. And my first set of lecture notes I ever produced were The Magician's Journey. Joseph Campbell's hero myth and how it relates to our personal path. And so probably artistically, and I think if I had to pull one, just one, it'd be Joseph Campbell.
You know, the thing I love the most about doing these kind of interviews is, especially for the YouTube audience, by and large, it's very, very young. And,
Right.
you know, I think, getting a name like Joseph Campbell out there is great, you know,
Sure.
and to, there's so much that you can learn. And, you know, the funny thing is that now in this age where, and I don't mean to disparage it, but there is a ton of information, you know.
Oh, yes.
We're doing a YouTube, you know, clip, you know, for, you know, we do 5 podcasts a week. It's, you know, we
Sure.
alone, just a bunch of, you know, dopey guys on the internet, you know, produce a
Right.
ton of stuff. But because of all that noise, the signal, the really, really, really useful stuff tends to get a little bit more lost. So I think, you know, having a name like out there and just having that be mentioned, you know, once again can help somebody find that, which would be fantastic.
Today, the core bit of information, it used to be, what do you know? And it used to be, how well can you search a library based on what you know to find more and greater depth of what you know? And how can you tell if something's a peer-reviewed journal? And how can you tell if something's an accurate source? But today, it's all about your ability to find information and delineate between good information and bad information. Some of the most popular sites on the internet on Martin Luther King are created by and owned by the KKK.
Yeah.
What a terrible thing. And if somebody doesn't know how to delineate the difference, tell the difference between good information, bad information, the internet is filled with both. I was the sales manager in Salt Lake when I was in high school of one of Salt Lake's first internet companies.
Okay.
And people used to tell me, how do you feel about letting my child on the internet? And I said the same as if how you feel about allowing your child to walk down the street alone in New York City. Everything is there, from dirty magazines to a public library to a museum to prostitution. It's all there. And so the internet today has so much information. And the same for a magician. Instead of having access to 1 or 2 effects a year, we have every effect ever created available at our fingertips. And it's all about finding the good information, the solid information, the well thought out information with the touches. And that's the key bit of knowledge today.
Yes. And also that you can find all that useful knowledge at iTricks.com, which I would like to point out.
Because you're a peer-reviewed journal. You're our peers in magic.
That's
and you're
it.
reviewing and delineating and looking and choosing. And if we trust you, then we trust the information.
And that is, I think, the key, is that you should, in fact, trust me, Justin Robert Young, editor of iTricks. Especially when I have guests like Paul Draper. All right, Paul, one more question.
Good.
Obviously, television magic has been, you know, in many ways kind of the first thing that people think of when it comes to the art of magic over the last 20, 25 years.
Sure.
Things have changed.
You're counting Doug Henning forward, but not Mark Wilson forward. Okay, good.
Okay, well, let's say 30 years, that 30, 40, you know, however long.
60.
60 years. Where do you see it going? You know, things are changing dramatically. I mean, things change from network to cable. You know, from let's say cable to YouTube, if we're gonna assume that jump is the next one to be made.
Right.
You know, where do you see it going? If somebody wants to get into a visual medium in magic, you know, what would you suggest?
Right. It's a hard question for me, and because I'm currently in the process of making that leap. Now, I've done some TV work, but primarily as a talking head, as an anthropologist, as an expert, as a voiceover artist. I've consulted for others' television work. If you go to my website, can I plug my website?
Of course.
If you go to mentalmysteries.com, that's mentalmysteries.com, you can see that I've hosted the special features on Poltergeist. I've hosted episodes of House Hunters and been on the History Channel on a special on Houdini and been on Chris Angel's Mind Freak a couple of times. But I haven't had my own television special. And as a matter of fact, the second we're done with this interview, I'm taking off this jacket and I'm driving straight to Los Angeles, where I've rented a house in Studio City for the rest of the month for pilot season, and I'm going around with my agent and pitching a few different television stations for television ideas and hosting ideas. And so I'm right in the mode of making that transition myself. But even with that, um, I think it's important to note that television is dying to a big degree. That more people are receiving their internet from YouTube and from their entertainment from the internet. Is that when we look at the last depression, the last major recession in the United States, people went to the nickel and dime theaters. They went to the inexpensive theaters, and that's where magicians really took off. Houdini went to the streets and performed in the streets for people for free entertainment because that's what they could afford. After that, the movies started taking off because they were far less expensive than the theaters because those actors didn't have to show up. Today, people are turning from movies and from live entertainment. Theaters are closing on Broadway. They're instead looking at free entertainment on television, and free entertainment more so any hour of the day on the internet, anything that they want, any access they want. And so the goal now is to get that level of exposure on the internet, because the internet doesn't currently pay us much, but receive that level of exposure on television and the internet, providing good information, something people actually want, that they want to pass on, that they want to share with others, so that then they will want to have our time in real life. Because forever, the only thing we have to give as an entertainer is our human life. When someone buys a signature, someone's signature, they're paying for a moment of that human being's life. And that signature goes up in value after that person dies because there are no more moments. There are no more signatures he can give. And they want to touch him. That's talked about a little in a book by a guy named Rogan Taylor called From Shaman to Superstar, The Death and Resurrection Show. This desire to touch that divine entertainer. So we give ourselves freely on television. We give ourselves freely by providing something useful, and then we trade for our human time. And that's currently the path I'm on, because even Chris Angel didn't make any money from the Mind Freak series. All of that money went right back into the show, went right back into producing. You don't make money on television. You lose money. Copperfield lost $1 million every year on television. But you make the money after the people love you and you've stepped into their homes, into their living rooms, and into their lives, and then you give the live performances and you sell your book and you have that interaction. The money is still live entertainment, but we have to provide something on the internet to make that worthwhile.
Well, there really isn't much more to say after that. That is a fantastic insight, and I want to thank Paul Draper for being on the iTricks interview, for giving it to us. Thank you very, very much. Again, what is it? mentalmysteries.com?
mentalmysteries.com.
mentalmysteries.com. Check out more information on Paul. And hey, man, good luck on pilot season. Have a good time.
Thank you very much.